Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm sitting here with Mike Mutzel. He has his master's in nutrition. This is one I've been excited about pretty much all week. If you ask my wife on this, like pretty much every day, I'm thinking of questions that are popping into my head. As you know, I'm very passionate about this general subject of nutrition and I guess kind of lifestyle creation. But Mike really lives every dynamic of what I believe in. So I'm beyond excited to sit down and pick your brain and bounce through a couple different ideas. So.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me, Rob. It's great to be here. Beautiful view. I mean, my gosh, no complaints.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I think a good place to start, we were just kind of talking about this, but I saw on Instagram, you haven't been to Costco in 15 years. How do you manage that? And why, why is that?
Yeah. You know what? I mean, so it's not like I'm trying to win an award for not going to Costco. It's just I try to support what's local. Mm-hmm. And so we go to natural food stores. I'm kind of a hippie at heart. Like I drive a car and, have an Apple iPhone and everything like that. But I really try to live and support as much local as I can. We have gardens and chickens and pigs and all that. So yeah, and I also found just from a pure financial point, I would go to Costco. We were talking about this offline, and if I needed like a razor to, whatever, which I probably need right now because coronavirus, right? I would buy like a 24 pack and I just needed one. So it was a lot of waste, and not to get too much down the environmental path, but we put stuff in the trash. We think it just goes somewhere, but it goes in the oceans, it goes in landfills, and landfills are exploding with our population. So I just thought, man, if I could support something it might be a little more expensive at a PCC or an Erewhon's or a Whole Foods, but generally these things are made of more biodynamic or recyclable materials. So that's it. Now, the caveat here is I only have one child. So if I had 6 kids, I would be forced to have to go to Sam's Club or Walmart or Costco. But we can manage without buying all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm not necessarily a minimalist, but I don't need 25 rolls of toilet paper, a gazillion razors, and then, look at this new thing. And when I was going to Costco a lot, I was just buying unnecessary crap.
Yeah. Well, so obviously from an environmental standpoint, it makes sense. How about from a health standpoint and some of the
Yeah, I mean, I think they have decent options now, organic and stuff like that. But I feel like you're definitely going to get higher quality food if you just go right to the farmer itself. Mm-hmm. What we've been doing is buying half a grass-fed cow. So I know the farmer, I can call him up, and just order it. Or we used to have 2 backyard pigs. We put them down and now have our freezer full of like some of the best pork that I've ever tasted in my life. It doesn't even, in fact, it almost tastes like like beef, because it's so much differently. It's raised so much differently. It had a different lifestyle. So I think, and now with all this coronavirus stuff that we're in the midst of, I feel like people are waking up to this. And look, my uncle works for a major food company that supplies majority of the animal products that Costco buys on a wholesale standpoint. They were dipping into their safety stock, running out of food. So this idea that we can just delegate this major part of our life, which is food, to other people or these major companies, what if they run into issues? Or what if coronavirus infects all their employees and they can't give us these things? It's not like a widget, a toy we just turn on a machine and it just goes, right? Yeah. You need to raise these animals, process them, deliver them. So I think a lot of people are waking up to this idea. And what's really kind of cool right now is like to get backyard chickens, like normally these feed supply stores are giving them away for buy one, get one free. Mm-hmm. Now they're running out of stock. Like you have to pre-order in advance because everyone they have an aha.
It makes sense all of a sudden.
Yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, like what if the store's out of chicken, which it was. Like, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, at least as we filmed this, there was no chicken to be had, fresh chicken. It was only frozen because everyone bought it out. Right. So it's kind of interesting, and it's not that much more work. And once you realize where your food comes from and you're more involved, you're collecting eggs, as a parent, kids are out of school right now. It's great. My daughter goes out there, she opens the chicken coop door, she brings in the eggs, she feeds them. Like it gives her a little responsibility, and now she knows where her food comes from. So anyway, if you just go to Costco and buy the 36 pack of eggs, you have no clue about what goes into that. So if you're like, oh, we can waste it, throw it away. Oh, it went bad. It's a different, I don't want to sound like too much of a hippie, but it's just a different mindset. And I feel like we need to change where things come. I was in Indonesia a couple of years ago, and this family wanted a chicken dinner. So this guy in a scooter came by with a chicken with his head cut off and delivered them. You could see the whole thing go down across from our Airbnb. And I was like, wow, that is really pretty cool, because people need to see that, because people like eat half of a chicken breast and like, oh, it's gross, and they throw the whole thing away just because there's more at the store. And I just think that it's just a wasteful mindset, you know?
So how much time is dedicated on your front to the general food consumption process?
Honestly, it's not that much. So I'll get up in the morning. I don't even look at my phone like I used to, just go through, because it'll just set off a bad tone for my day.
Yeah.
I'll go outside, do some breath work, you know, some hyperventilation, followed by retention, some box breathing, which we can get into. And I will have brought out the compost with me. I put it in the compost after the breathing. I'll let out the chickens. Usually my kid who's over there will get up with me. We put in the chicken food, you know, at night so rats don't get to it, because that's the only downside about chickens is, you know, their feed is grain based and rats love that. We'll put it out and they run around. We make sure they have water. It's all in. It's 10 minutes. Like I used to travel like 70 flights a year, right? So I used to travel a ton, and I could pull it off no problem, or have my neighbor do it for me. So it seems like, oh my gosh, this is another errand for me to do, like eggs and chickens, and you have chicken crap. And what about salmonella? We've never been sick since doing this.
You hit on a subtle little thing there. You said you don't check your phone when you first wake up.
I used to, man. I used to lie in bed on Instagram, and it was like my day was just wrecked.
Yeah, yeah. So how long?
Like 3 years I've been doing that.
No. How long do you stay disengaged from your phone when you first start your day?
Yeah, to be honest, like it really depends on. It sounds weird, but as a content creator, I'm always curious about the stats. Like, okay, that video that I posted yesterday, like what happened? As a business owner, I want to look at my sales, but I try to just delay that gratification, because I know that if I can journal, write down my dreams, think about what I'm grateful for, do a cold plunge, have a little cold plunge tank outside, do the chicken stuff breath work, I'm like, my day is going to be way better.
Yeah.
And I feel so much better. And then I'm like, I feel this this addiction for the phone. You know, like it's very.
I do too.
Yeah, it's like a drug, man.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
It's like, and so I just try to be mindful about that, and you know, because there were times in my life that I wasn't aware that these things were very addictive, and I would lay in bed for like an hour, like waste my morning screwing around on Instagram. Then I'm mad at myself, and then I'm late, like everything. I haven't done the chicken work, I haven't done this, and then I'm like feeling like a failure. Yep. And then I'm feeling like shit. Then I'm, you know, oops, can we swear?
Totally.
Anyway, then I'm rushing to work. I'm speeding up in traffic. I'm pissed off, and it's like this domino effect in a negative direction. So I think one of the biggest pieces of low hanging fruit that people can do is just create more, you know, boundaries around their phone use.
Absolutely. That's been a big change for me over the last 2 years. Like I try to make it at least an hour before getting on there. Doesn't always work, but more times than not. So how do you structure your day in general, right? Like obviously from the food component to running a successful business to, you know, the content piece. I mean, those are a lot of things that take a lot of time and probably would be pretty intimidating to a lot of people. How do you do it all and do it well?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I could do things better, you know, but what I do is circadian rhythms and biological rhythms, I think, are a foundation for health. And this idea that our body's not this static machine, you know.
Can you elaborate a little bit just on circadian rhythm and kind of?
Yeah. Well, so if we think about the rise and fall of the sun in a day, like our metabolism is constantly changing, like our body's ability to be insulin or glucose sensitive is a little bit more so in the morning, and we progressively become more insulin resistant. So our carbohydrate tolerance throughout the day changes. Our hormones change. You know, as men, we should wake up with an erection, right? So our testosterone levels are highest in the morning. You know, women know about circadian clocks very well. I mean, if two women move in together, it's likely that their period and their menstruation cycle will start to go in sync, which is crazy, right? So anyway,
that's our biology. Like
totally. Like we're all in rhythm and in sync, and
so we're meant to go to sleep as the sun goes down.
Yeah, and not meant to eat when the sun goes down. This is, I think, a big mistake.
We go into survival mode, right? Or not. Yeah, I mean, like
there's predators, man. There's bobcats and wolves and bears and crap that you don't want to come in contact with. And we're insulated in our homes. We can order pizza at midnight, so we think that we're able to metabolize these things, but
we think biology doesn't apply to us. Or we don't think about it at all.
We're superior. Yeah. We can override these things. But if you look at people's health, man, I mean, if you look at obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, cerebrovascular disease, cancer, allergies, asthma, you name it. I mean, they're on the rise all throughout the world because we think we can outsmart biology, which is not the case. So if anyone doubts this, if they go camping and distance themselves from this, they'll know that like when the sun goes down, they're not going to be running around, hanging out. They're going to be in the tent, because this is when you're going to hear the wolves, the coyotes, and there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainties. So you're going to want to have food shortly after that and go to bed. And you sleep so much better. I went on a hunting trip.
Total reset, right?
Dude,
like I want to make that an annual thing for my company. Like we want to go. No, and it's going to be hard, right? Because we might have to stagger it because we're a digital company. So someone needs to be watching the computer. Someone needs to be watching the phones. But overall, for like health and just reset, like we want to go at least, how long was your hunting trip?
It was 8 days, which was long.
Yeah.
As a business owner, I mean, it was tough. I mean, I had no communication with the outside world.
Yeah.
I should take that back. These satellite phones that send these really cryptic.
My dad went and
you know what I mean? The
right,
Garmin's.
Montana, and he had to have one too. Yeah. Just
so you can send emergency stuff,
Yeah.
And we figured out like who won a Seahawks game like one night, but that was like the exciting thing, you know. But it was nice to like not have that draw. I was thinking about so much more stuff, sleeping so deeply.
Yeah.
Like if anyone's ever gotten woken up at like 4 a.m, you're like, man, the probability of me falling back to sleep, because your to-do list just starts cranking. There were many times when I woke up and it was like 4 a.m. I'm like, and I was nervous, like, what am I going to do in this tent? Because I have other people here, and I fell right back asleep till 7.
Really?
Yeah, it was
That's
like
awesome.
There was no anxiety around it. I felt really good. So that's a really, again, with kids out of school, people have this flexibility of like, wow, I could take my family on a vacation now, or I could go on a camping trip.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ran into a buddy walking in Kirkland yesterday. He's like, you know what, we're going to rent an RV and go see all the national parks because kids are out of school. Like my work's closed, So I think now we're able to afford to be able to do these things that previously we probably couldn't do because of all the work pressures that we had, which is kind of unique.
So even pivoting back and aligning productivity with from a circadian standpoint.
Yeah.
That truly is the only way to realize true peak performance, right? Is to align with our biology. Like we can't work against it. That's safe to say.
I think so. And I think your creativity, your ability to accomplish tasks are more higher. Like your success rate is higher in the morning. Mm-hmm. So if you bog yourself down with traffic, with iPhone stuff, with getting on Instagram and social media sites, which again, we all use and we love, but I try to do that later in the day when I know I'm going to be naturally distracted and I'm not going to be able to say write or read with uninterrupted for an extended period of time. So what I'll do is, because part of kind of my shtick, if you will, from a business standpoint, is trying to distill some of the research that is a little bit too complicated for the average person.
For me, and you do a fantastic job of it, so thank you.
Yeah, I just try. It's just naturally something that like I like doing, and it helps people, right? So at 2 p.m, the probability of me being uninterrupted and like being able to really synthesize and think critically about something is not as good as like say 9 a.m, right? Yeah. So I try to do all that, not take any meetings, phone calls, everything until afternoon.
So I got a question for you. I like on this subject, I like to get up around, like my goal is usually 4:30, and I like to do it naturally because I'm unbothered. Because I'm not. Now, is that too early? Like
if you can do it naturally, like if you don't need to set an alarm and you're going to bed early, I think that's fine.
Because that's what, I'm getting 8 hours, and if I'm not, it'll be 5:30. But I really like that no one needs anything from me at that hour, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I was curious about that because in a way, it almost feels like I'm fighting my own. It's still dark, right?
Yeah.
At 4:30,
right?
Especially in the winter months, like it becomes tough. a lot harder. No, that's cool. So when do you typically eat? When's your first meal?
Usually around 1, but between 11 and 1. I try to really delay that for a variety of different reasons. But I feel like preparing food takes time, right? Yeah. And again, if I could just focus on building some progress, like I think of my day like a snowball. And if I can make a big snowball so it has a lot of momentum, so it's rolling down the hill, then I'm going to have a better day and I'll feel better about myself at the end of the day. I feel like a lot of us, we're unproductive, we're being torn in all these different directions, answering other people's problems, and and then at the end of the day, we feel like crap. And so this is where we see binge drinking, we see binge eating food and everything. So I just try to do as much as I can from a productivity standpoint. So earlier in the day, and why waste 45 minutes cooking, And so I feel like too, it's in the morning, it's a natural way to kind of ride that circadian rhythm standpoint. You're more in a fat burning machinery and ketones
Absolutely.
are higher.
Yeah.
So why interrupt that with a little insulin spike from even something like backyard eggs?
Because you feel like food does, like, so this has been what I've been wrestling with is I've really been trying to dial things in lately. And regardless of the meal, even if it is, like you said, like eggs and avocado, there's still a dip in that kind of like
creativity.
Totally. So I'm not crazy for that. That's like probably a real, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is. I mean, look, we all have to eat food and everything, but when you eat food, you alter your body's homeostatic balance.
Yeah.
So there are counter-regulatory hormones that are going to increase or decrease. And I'm not saying eating's a bad thing, but you're disrupting homeostasis, right? So if you're really trying to like get peak mental performance, productivity, creativity, you can really delay. You're going to be fine without food for an extended period of time. I mean, I found like on days where I'm, rewriting a new book, for example, I'll just do one meal a day in the like kind of late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah.
Feel super satiated. As long as you have enough fat and enough protein in that one meal, then you're going to be fine.
Now, what if you're training aggressively though?
It can be that's where it becomes challenging, right? So you have some lean body mass where you're like 205-ish.
Right around there. Yeah.
In that ballpark. So like someone like you, that would be a lot, 3,000 plus calories. That'd be a big meal. So maybe you can do 2 meals and space them out 3 or 4 hours.
Now, how does that work with the whole digestion process? Because you were the first one that kind of changed my perspective of that. Obviously I knew like eating a bunch of small, like that never made sense, but it's a very complicated process. Like you want, so how do you stagger those meals, I guess? Kind of what's the best way to think about it?
Yeah, I think if you're doing like a lower carb, high fat style meal, you definitely need some space in there. So if you're doing more keto-ish, but if you're doing kind of a low carb paleo type approach, a 3 to 4 hour break gap in between is fine, but fats do take a little bit longer to digest and assimilate and everything. In fact, some feeding studies have shown about 18 hours is what it takes for fats in your small intestine to be fully processed. So you have that, high fat, like breakfast we were talking about. Maybe you do a bulletproof style coffee, avocado and eggs, right? Maybe 80 to 100 grams of fat. Like if you were to biopsy your intestine, and scientists have actually done this in Canada in real humans, they found that radioisotope fats from that meal were found 18 hours later in the small intestine. So that's kind of the one thing about keto people need to realize. If they're doing keto, it's hard to do the bodybuilding style every 2 to 3 hours keto, because you're really going to just like
wreak some havoc. I mean,
yeah. It's a big mistake I think a lot of people make when they try to go keto first, because they're doing the eat every 2 to 3 hours fitnessy style diet. And then they just cut out the carbs and crank up the fat, and that can be a problem.
And I don't go like hardcore keto very often. Nice. When I do, or if I did, I try to do one meal. It just makes it, and it's usually a huge meal.
Yeah.
But that's probably the way to do it, you think?
I would say, when you do it like 4 or 5 p.m. or something like that, or
3 or 4.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard with the family though too. Have you noticed, like with the kid and the wife, like it?
So we haven't gone full relentless hardcore keto since Rosie's been born. So it's been a
little bit.
Yeah. 8 months.
So it's nice to eat with the family.
It is. And kind of have that whole, I mean, that's a whole nother thing, right? To treat meals as a time for the social dynamic, right?
Totally.
Yeah. That's been one change. I'm curious if there's any like hard science behind it, but I've tried to make it a habit to not to put my phone in a different room, right? Like create a barrier when I'm eating, because like there's something to be said for mindful eating, right?
100%. Oh, there's tons of data on this. Yeah. But it's a hard sell for people, especially if they're young and single, live by themselves. Like,
it's easy. I mean, it's,
it's just right there. You're like, well, I'm just eating. Like, what about calories? But I mean, there's this whole notion of this cephalic brain-based digestion. So cephalic digestion. So for example, like if someone was preparing food right now, and even people might start to notice as we talk about this, they might start to salivate, right? So if you could smell like
that's the start of the digestion process, right?
Dude, your body's trying to, so as we were just talking about, eating disrupts homeostasis. So your brain knows that. So when you start to smell food, taste food, anticipate food, you're starting to release insulin ahead of time, because your body's like, whoa, we know that a shift is coming. Let's kind of like get things prepared so that the shift is not as bad. So it's anticipating that. And if you're simultaneously focusing on Instagram, I keep picking on Instagram, we can call it Facebook, whatever. You're not going to, or watching the news, your body's going to be having to like partition its resources, and you're not going to get that full cephalic phase of digestion. And then what do people complain about? They're indigested. They're burpy, gassy, bloated. They're constipated.
You're saying that can be purely because they're not focused on their food.
Yeah, a lot of it, because so much of the intervention to our GI tract is brain-based. In fact, if you look at how bariatric surgery works to cause weight loss, most of it is affecting these hormones that are blunted from lack of cephalic phase of digestion.
So I mean, that's one that if I didn't have the motivation already, like I said, I'm making this a habit, but now it's like guaranteed. We're putting our phone in the other room. And so question for you, I was telling you earlier, I believe in like incremental progress, right? Like none of these things are huge. They're not going to change your life overnight, but if stacked up over the course of a year and the right habits are developed, they tend to yield, significant change. What are some other, I guess, kind of low hanging things that you'd recommend people should look at doing to, further start building their own snowball?
Totally. I think it's great. A little bit of movement after a meal is good. And you have your continuous glucose monitor on, so you can vet this. But even if you have a low carb meal, you might see a bump in your glucose. But especially if you have a high carb meal, definitely go for a walk, and it's a great way to help digestion. And this is what people naturally do in different countries: take a walk, go get a coffee, get a wine, whatever. So that's what I suggest is like, and Stan Efferding and Mark Bell have been talking about this forever, but like a 10-minute walk. So instead of, a lot of people like they do their cardio 30, 40 minutes structured, but they're eating multiple times a day. Instead of doing like a structured 40-minute stair stepper routine, go and, take some walk up some hills in your neighborhood or whatever after you eat. And that will really help to improve digestion and blunt that post-meal glucose spike. I did a little funny experiment. We went to a popular vegan restaurant here in Seattle, and I just said, hey, look.
They let you in there?
Yeah, this was, so I filmed it, right? And I just said, hey, look, we normally don't eat this sort of food. I just said, hey, we've never been here. Just give us your most popular items, And he's like, oh yeah, and our pizza, we got this. It was all super high carb. And I had my glucose monitor on. And
oh God,
dude, it went like close to, I think the highest was 180, which for me was like,
that's crazy.
Really high.
Crazy.
And I went for a walk, and because I was about to go to bed, right? I was like, dude, I can't just sleep with this very high glucose level, just knowing what it was like bothering me.
You had to get some weights out at that point, probably.
Totally, dude. So I did a few sprints around with my dogs, and it brought it back down to 80.
Really?
Yeah. So it's really profound, especially if you already have a little bit of lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
That the changes can be massive. And so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I like that.
It's like a little cheat pill. Another just piece of low-hanging fruit. I mean, no matter where you live, in a condo, an apartment, a big home, first thing in the morning, like again, before you get on your phone, just step outside and expose your retina to the sun.
Yes.
So
I've been doing that. It sets the tone for circadian rhythm, right?
Totally.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
So that's good. What else? I mean, trying to buy food from a local farmer, just Google grass-fed beef, organic vegetables. Like when people watch this, hopefully farmers markets will be back up and running, but maybe they're not. And all these farmers probably have inventory they want to unload at a deal. So you can get a CSA, community shared agriculture, like a little basket of vegetables and fruit, things like that, or just call up a local organic farm and say, hey, look, if I come there, can you load me up with a box? I think that's a good low-hanging fruit.
So how much do you try to, just circling back really quick on the meal idea, you usually eat your first meal around 1 or 2. How much do you try to accomplish post-meal really? Like where is the shift in terms of, or I guess the expectation for productivity after eating?
Yeah.
Obviously you don't just shut down and do nothing. It's
right.
2 or 3 o'clock, but how do your goals change?
Totally. No, it's a great question. I mean, thankfully now that I've been low carb keto since 2015, I don't have this afternoon slump where I need to take a nap basically like I used to when I was eating a high carb style diet. But now with my daughter at home with all this coronavirus stuff, what I'll do is after I eat, it's like a natural break in the work day. So we'll go outside and mess around with the chickens or go for a walk. We're super blessed to live behind like this area where we can hike. So we'll take a hike with the dogs. So what I do is try to use my break as a way to recharge, and so that's what I'll do. I try not to just jump right back into work. So I think, even the most productive people have structured breaks in their routine. So that's what I'll do after a meal. But like I said, I mean, the nice thing about going keto is you don't feel like, oh man, I need a Starbucks to just keep going. It's optional. I'll have a little green tea sometimes in the afternoon. I don't steep it for very long because I try to be mindful about caffeine timing.
What time do you cut off caffeine?
Try to like at noon.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'll be a little bit more laid back about it on a weekend, but it still does. Like, even if I don't feel like I'm having an issue falling asleep, my Oura ring will tell me like, hey, your deep sleep sucked.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So it certainly,
that too the hard way.
Right. And it's tough. Like we went to Santiago, Chile in November, and cafes were a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so at like 2:00, 4:00, you know, we would still have espresso. And we just did it because we were there. We're on vacation.
Yeah, for sure.
But you definitely can see your Oura rings like you were tossing and turning. I
think that's the thing I appreciate about you most. Like you're hardcore with this stuff, but you're very human about it too, right? Like you go on vacation, like, you know, it's just, you accept life for what it is, right?
Totally.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So much good stuff. So do you struggle building muscle? Like if you want on keto?
I don't know. I feel like I definitely,
it doesn't look like it. I'm just curious
it's easier to build muscle on a higher carb diet for me, for sure.
Yeah.
But I found like when I go keto, and this is like, it's going to sound vain, but I tend to look more flat. Like maybe people can tell like you're more vascular. Like I haven't eaten anything since it was like, I didn't have dinner last night. Actually, I had a protein shake at like 6. So here we are, it's probably close to 11 or noon right now. I had a little bit of a fatty coffee, but if I was trying to strictly look the most aesthetically pleasing, I would definitely do more of like a paleo diet, 2 meals a day kind of thing.
And that's just that's on the glycogen front, just to kind of.
Yeah, I haven't been able to figure it out. Some people say it's water retention. Like Mike, just up your salt. Like, dude, I'm having 7 grams of salt sometimes a day.
Yeah.
You know, and I sauna too and stuff. But I've just found like if I do strict low carb keto and I bake in intermittent fasting or some time restricted feeding, like I look like I don't work out. And then if I have like a sweet potato, it's like I'll have like
boom.
Yeah. And it's like
totally.
It happens very quickly. And so I think it really depends on what people's goals are, because, you know, okay, it's nice to have veins and stuff, but it doesn't really impact my life that much. Like maybe if I was 20 years old and single, like I'd be like, wow, this is what I need to do before a date, but it doesn't really matter that much for me. But I definitely have a better workout when I've had some carbs. I'll be straight up. And here's the cool thing about exercise is it enables people to have more carbohydrates. So a lot of people think, oh my gosh, to be keto, you can only have 20 grams of carbs per day. Well, that might be true if you're a sedentary couch potato, but if you're out there active and you're metabolically flexible, you can afford to have a lot more buffer room.
I like that terminology, metabolically flexible.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, honestly, in a lot of ways, it's kind of I lift heavy because carbs are kind of my treat, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'll have a paleo pizza or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it allows you to hit it harder and enjoy your life a little
not
bit.
feel so regimented.
Exactly.
Because I think that's the problem is like so many people are put in these boxes and we're so restrictive that then people just, something's going to break. Mm-hmm. So then they go and have a bunch of donuts or crush a whole thing of ice cream, right? Because they feel like they've been so restrictive. So I think if you naturally just...
Rebellion, you know?
Yeah. I like the 80-20 principle. And if you think about everything in your life, you know, the type of books that you read, I mean, 80% of the time, you know, you're reading those type of books, where you go out to dinner. I mean, if you think of it, it applies to everything in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think it needs to apply to our food, and have that flexibility baked in is nice. And physical fitness enables you to do that without feeling like crap, you know?
So how much of your whole routine is built on, I guess, habit, right? And kind of having the right systems in place?
A lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, like I've been interested in this stuff since I was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
Since as soon as I can remember, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Van Damme, like I was like, I want to look like that, you know? And then in high school, I basically copied and cheated and on the read bodybuilding books and magazines. Like that was all I was focused on, you know, and stuff. So I guess maybe like now all this stuff is so accessible to everyone, but it's just naturally been something that I've been super interested in, that now I've had these habits where, you know, I had this surgical procedure. I had an inguinal hernia, and it forced me to be sedentary for basically 4 weeks. I couldn't lift more than like 15 pounds. I still took walks and everything, but I'm like now in the worst shape that I've been in the last maybe 8 or 10 years. But I have all these habits. Like it'll be easy for me to get back.
To pick them up. Yeah.
You know, like my daughter was like the other day, like, my dad, like your stomach looks fat, you know, she's like, and it's not, right? But I just know, like I have the routines to get, and I feel like, and I'm saying this not to brag or anything, but I want people to realize that like once you learn these systems and make this like a recipe for yourself to figure out how your body can function optimally, you can easily get back to that place.
Yeah.
You know, and of course our bodies change with age and hormones, and it might be a little bit more difficult for some people after 6 kids or whatever. But once you learn these habits, it's not that challenging, you know, and,
we'll start snowballing for you, right?
Totally.
That's kind of how I've seen it. And I've taken this approach that, you know, like from an investment standpoint, you invest in things, you invest in the future, you invest in the stock market, whatever.
Yeah.
If you can't invest in your own well-being, really, and it doesn't have to be financially, but just the time or the effort or whatever, you know, like what would you be investing in if you can't invest in your own body and your own self? So that's been kind of my thing. And I've seen that snowball, right? It can just be even like talking dollar amounts, I guess, like red light. I love red light. Are you a red light fan?
Yeah, we have a Juve and everything.
Yeah, you know, like buying a Juve, like that's something that if you stand in front of it every day, there'll be incremental progress, right? I eventually, have you done any like tests with it? I really want to I've been doing it for so long now, it doesn't make sense, but I feel like it's positively impacted testosterone levels for me.
Yeah.
You think so?
So I was super doubtful that the Juve would do anything.
Yeah.
So when I got it, I can't remember if it was 2017, I think is when I got it. And so I ran a full, you know, free testosterone, total testosterone, estrogen, sex hormone binding.
So you've done this
whole thing, right? Because I was like, dude, there's no way this thing can bump up my testosterone. And my free and total went way higher, like almost doubled. Seriously. That's awesome. I didn't do anything. Now the seasons did change. So that's the one thing that people are like, well, you know, what else did you do? So I did the testing in February and I started treatment, you know, of the Juve every day, like, you know, full naked and all that sort of stuff. And then I retested at the end of May. And it's an old Instagram post, but if people are curious, like I've also done some YouTube reviews on it because again, so many people are doubtful, especially the men. They're like, dude, there's no way light can raise your T. And I'm like, well, it affects your circadian rhythms. It affects your mitochondria. Yeah. It's bringing more blood flow, you know, and circulatory. And there's probably other things we don't yet know mechanistically about how it's working. But I think that's a big, especially for men, young men. I mean, you know, some young men are not waking up with an erection. If you're not, then you need to do.
So like not to get too in detail, but like that's where I told you I didn't run in, you know, I didn't do the blood draws or anything, but that's the first thing I noticed. Like it was like, whoa, something's happening here, you know? And yeah, I mean, again, we don't got to get too into that, but it was pretty clear.
Totally.
That's awesome. So I know we're kind of winding down here. One thing I did want to drill down on, again, you accomplish a lot. How do you go about minimizing distractions?
Yeah. I turn off all notifications and stuff like that. So, you know,
text messages, all that. I'll just check it, you know, when I need to. And so, you know, and what I do is I turn on the alert on the text messages to let people know that I've read it or not. So then if they send something like, why isn't he getting back to me? They can know that, oh, he hasn't read it. I'll just call him, you know, pick up the phone or whatever. So I do that. And I just try and batch my email. So like I'll check it twice a day. You know, I know some people might think it's rude, but I realized that I was just spending way too much. I used to like refresh my email, my text like every second. Yeah. And it was like, I'm wasting so much time. It's addicting.
So addicting. Yeah. And I can't remember what the name of the app is now because I don't use it as much anymore, but it was able to track like how much time you're spending on your Devone and it parsed it out into, various apps. And I was like Instagram, email, text, Facebook. So I'm like, dude, and all these alerts was like, I could hear it buzz and beep. So I turned them all off. And on my computer too, I used to have like FaceTime and text pop up and just turn them all off. Yeah. I mean, honestly, people can save 2 hours a day just by doing that. Mm-hmm. And because you spend so much time, like, you know, I used to have this mentality of like, I have to be the first one to reply to an email. It's like, now I'll get to it when I can, you know, and no one's cried or complained that I know of, you know, I still get business done. So I think that's super an easy way to get, you know, the productivity up. And then the other thing, there's this book called Triggers by Malcolm Goldsmith, and he has this. It's a really good book for business owners or people that want to enhance their productivity. He has this thing called these nightly questions, and it's just a spreadsheet. It's called "Do I Do My Best?" I'm sure people could check, just find the spreadsheet, but you ask yourself at the end of every night, like, did I do my best to read today? Did I do my best to be a good father? Mm-hmm. You know, because I used to be super short with my daughter, like, come on, let's go, like just, you know, stuff like that, because I'm juggling too much. And I'd feel bad about it. It's like, dude, I could have acted way better in that situation. And so I would evaluate myself, and I still do every night, and say, did I do my best to like be a good dad? Did I do my best to be a good husband? Did I do my best to serve my customers today? And so after a while, when I would hit 0 out of 10 every night, I'm like, dude, I'm totally screwing up here.
Shaping future behavior.
Yeah. And so it's like you're self-evaluating, you know, instead of writing, because I think a lot of people think, okay, well, I want to achieve more, do more, learn. So I'm going to write down all my goals. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be like, dude, I only hit 1 of 10 goals. So I suck as a person.
Yeah.
And then you start to believe that you just suck and you're unproductive. But that's not really shaping new behaviors that are going to help you achieve, you know, more goals and so forth. And these nightly questions really helped. And so, yeah, that's a really good one. I've recommended that book to a lot of people. And I think it's Malcolm Goldsmith, I think, is the author. He's a coach for a lot of businesses and stuff in LA. And
nice.
He's an old school guy, but you know, just a spreadsheet quickly can change your life.
Sometimes the simplest things that make a world of difference. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people reach you if they have more questions, which I'm sure they will?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, metabolic_Mike, and my main kind of channel is YouTube. So it's High Intensity Health on YouTube, and really appreciate you coming on, and good to connect with you in person.
Oh, absolutely. No, I really appreciate it. Hopefully do it again soon.
For sure, man.
Thank you. Until next time.